Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to learn 50 English vocabulary that will take your speaking skills to the next level. Whether you're giving a presentation, engaging in a debate, or simply conversing with friends, mastering these vocabulary words will elevate your communication skills to new heights. So, what are you waiting for? Dive into the video, expand your vocabulary, and embark on a journey towards becoming a more articulate and confident communicator. Abrupt. Abrupt. Meaning: the word abrupt is an adjective that typically describes something happening suddenly, unexpectedly, or without warning. Example: the meeting came to an abrupt end when the fire alarm went off. Adjourned. Adjourned. Meaning: adjourned is a verb that means to temporarily suspend a meeting, session, or gathering with the intention of resuming it at a later time or date. Example: after several hours of deliberation, the court adjourned for the day and scheduled the next session for the following week. Cherish. Cherish. Meaning: cherish is a verb that means to hold dear, to care for deeply, or to appreciate greatly. Example: she cherished her grandmother's old necklace as it reminded her of the special moments they had shared together. Condemn. Condemn. Meaning: condemn is a verb that means to express strong disapproval of something or someone, often in a public or formal manner. Example: the community leaders issued a statement condemning the act of vandalism in the park. Consistence. Consistence. Meaning: consistence is a noun that refers to the quality of being consistent, stable, or uniform. Example: the success of the project was due to the consistency of the team's efforts over time. Distinguish. Distinguish. Meaning: distinguish is a verb that means to recognize or identify the differences between two or more things. Example: it's important to distinguish between facts and opinions when evaluating sources of information. Exaggerate. Exaggerate. Meaning: exaggerate is a verb that means to overstate or magnify something beyond its actual or reasonable limits. Example: she tends to exaggerate the size of the fish she caught, claiming it was twice as big as it really was. Empathy. Empathy. Meaning: empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings and emotions of others, often leading to a sense of compassion and connection. Example: during the argument, she showed empathy towards her friend's frustration, validating their feelings and diffusing the tension. Fabricate. Fabricate. Meaning: fabricate is a verb that means to invent or create something, especially with the intent to deceive or to make something up. Example: the witness admitted to fabricating the story in order to protect their friend. Flawed. Flawed. Meaning: flawed is an adjective that describes something or someone as imperfect or containing defects. Example: the research methodology had several flawed assumptions, leading to unreliable results. Flaunting. Flaunting. Meaning: flaunting is a verb that means to display something ostentatiously or conspicuously, often to attract attention or to show off. Example: she arrived at the party flaunting her new designer dress, drawing admiring glances from the other guests. Flawless. Flawless. Meaning: flawless is an adjective that describes something as being perfect or without any imperfections. Example: the singer delivered a flawless performance, hitting every note with precision and emotion. Fragile. Fragile. Meaning: fragile is an adjective that describes something as delicate, easily broken, or vulnerable to damage. Example: the fragile vase must be handled with care to avoid any cracks or chips. Furious. Furious. Meaning: furious is an adjective that describes a state of extreme anger or rage. Example: after discovering her car had been scratched, she became furious and demanded to know who was responsible. Grumpy. Grumpy. Meaning: grumpy is an adjective that describes someone who is irritable, grouchy, or in a bad mood. Example: before he had his morning coffee, he tended to be grumpy and not very talkative. Integrity. Integrity. Meaning: integrity is a noun that refers to the quality of being honest, principled, and having strong moral character. Example, despite facing pressure to compromise his principles, the politician maintained his integrity and refused to engage in corrupt practices. Inevitable. Inevitable. Meaning, the word inevitable is an adjective that describes something that is certain to happen and cannot be avoided or prevented. Example, as technology advances, it is inevitable that some traditional jobs will be replaced by automation. Intimidate. Intimidate. Meaning, intimidate is a verb that means to deliberately make someone feel frightened to gain an advantage over them. Example, the bully tried to intimidate the new student by making threatening gestures and rude comments. Invade. Invade. Meaning, invade is a verb that means to enter a place or situation aggressively or forcefully, often with the intention of taking control or causing disruption. Example, the army prepared to invade the neighboring country in order to seize control of its resources. Jubilant. Jubilant. Meaning, jubilant is an adjective that describes a feeling of great joy, triumph, or happiness. Example, after winning the championship, the team and their supporters were jubilant, celebrating their victory with cheers and laughter. Landmark. Landmark. Meaning, landmark can refer to a significant or notable feature in a landscape, such as a prominent building or natural formation. Example, the Eiffel Tower is a landmark in Paris, France, attracting millions of visitors every year. Limbo. Limbo. Meaning, limbo is a noun that refers to a state of uncertainty, transition, or unresolved situation, often characterized by a lack of progress or movement. Example, after the company announced layoffs, many employees found themselves in limbo, unsure of their future with the company. Magnify. Magnify. Meaning, magnify is a verb that means to make something appear larger or more prominent, often by using a lens or by exaggerating its importance or significance. Example, the microscope magnified the tiny organisms, allowing the scientists to study their structure and behavior in detail. Metaphor. Metaphor. Meaning, a metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or action by directly comparing it to something else, often unrelated, to create a vivid or imaginative image. Example, her smile was a ray of sunshine in the gloomy room. Minuscule. Minuscule. Meaning, minuscule, often spelled as minuscule, is an adjective that means extremely small or tiny. Example, the ants carried minuscule crumbs of food back to their nest. Mitigate. Mitigate. Meaning, mitigate is a verb that means to make something less severe, serious, or painful. Example, the new safety measures were implemented to mitigate the risk of accidents in the workplace. Nightmare. Nightmare. Meaning, nightmare is a noun that refers to a terrifying or unpleasant dream, or it can describe a situation or experience that is very difficult, distressing, or hard to deal with. Example, after the car accident, dealing with the insurance company became a bureaucratic nightmare. Paradigm. Paradigm. Meaning, a paradigm is a typical example or pattern of something. In simpler terms, a paradigm is like a model or framework that guides how people think about and understand a particular subject or field. Example, in the field of psychology, behaviorism was once the dominant paradigm for understanding human behavior. Pragmatic. Pragmatic. Meaning, pragmatic is an adjective that describes an approach or attitude that is practical, realistic, and focused on achieving practical results or solutions. Example, in order to solve the budget crisis, the city council took a pragmatic approach, focusing on cost-cutting measures rather than ideological debates. Prejudice. Prejudice. Meaning, prejudice is a noun that refers to a preconceived opinion or judgment about a person or group that is not based on reason or actual experience. Example, her decision not to hire the candidate because of his race was based on prejudice rather than his qualifications or abilities. Prolific. Prolific. Meaning, prolific is an adjective that describes someone or something that produces a large amount of something, typically creative work or offspring. Example, Emily Dickinson was a prolific poet, having written over 1,800 poems in her lifetime. Persuade. Persuade. Meaning. Persuade is a verb that means to convince someone to do or believe something through reasoning or argumentation. Example. She tried to persuade her parents to let her go on the school trip by explaining the educational benefits and safety measures in place. Replicate. Replicate. Meaning. Replicate is a verb that means to duplicate, copy, or reproduce something exactly. Example. The artist attempted to replicate the famous painting, striving to capture every detail and brushstroke of the original masterpiece. Retaliation. Retaliation. Meaning. Retaliation is a noun that refers to the act of responding to an action or attack with a similar action, often with the intention of causing harm or revenge. Example. After the trade tariffs were imposed by one country, the other country threatened retaliation by imposing its own tariffs on imported goods. Rustling. Rustling. Meaning. Rustling is a verb that typically describes the soft, whispering sound of leaves or papers moving in the wind. Example. The rustling of leaves outside the window soothed her as she drifted off to sleep. Sarcasm. Sarcasm. Meaning. Sarcasm is a form of verbal irony where someone says something, often in a mocking or humorous tone, to convey the opposite of its literal meaning, typically to express contempt, ridicule, or scorn. Example. Upon seeing her friend arrive late as usual, Sarah said with a sarcastic tone, "Wow, right on time as always." Sensational. Sensational. Meaning. Sensational is an adjective that describes something as causing great excitement, interest, or attention, often because it is striking, dramatic, or provocative. Example. The journalist's sensational article about the scandal attracted a lot of readership and sparked widespread debate. Shabby. Shabby. Meaning. Shabby is an adjective that describes something as worn out, dilapidated, or in poor condition, often suggesting neglect or lack of care. Example. The old house had a shabby appearance, with peeling paint and broken windows. Sophisticated. Sophisticated. Meaning. Sophisticated is an adjective that describes something as refined, elegant, or complex, often implying a high level of knowledge, skill, or taste. Example. The restaurant offered a sophisticated menu featuring gourmet dishes from around the world. Staggering. Staggering. Meaning. Staggering is an adjective that describes something as astonishingly large, shocking, or overwhelming. Example. The amount of money raised for charity was staggering, exceeding all expectations. Stereotype. Stereotype. Meaning. Stereotype can be a noun or a verb. As a noun, it refers to a widely held but oversimplified and often inaccurate belief or idea about a particular group of people. As a verb, it means to characterize or categorize someone or something according to a stereotype. Noun example. The stereotype that all teenagers are lazy and rebellious is unfair and untrue. Verb example. It's important not to stereotype individuals based on their appearance or background. Stumble. Stumble. Meaning. Stumble is a verb that means to trip or lose one's balance while walking or running. Example. She stumbled on the uneven pavement and nearly fell. Substantial. Substantial. Meaning. Substantial is an adjective that means large in size, amount, or degree, significant, or considerable. Example. After receiving a substantial pay raise, she was able to afford a nicer apartment. Tweak. Tweak. Meaning. Tweak is a verb that means to make small adjustments or changes to something in order to improve it or make it more effective. Example. The designer decided to tweak the layout of the website to improve user navigation. Utopia. Utopia. Meaning. Utopia is a noun. It refers to an imagined place or state of ideal perfection, typically in social, political, or moral terms. It's often used to describe an idealistic society or situation that doesn't exist in reality. Example. In the novel, the protagonist dreams of a utopia where all conflicts are resolved peacefully and everyone lives in harmony. Vague. Vague. Meaning. Vague is an adjective that describes something that is unclear, imprecise, or not clearly defined. Example. The instructions he gave were vague, leaving us uncertain about what exactly we were supposed to do. Reciprocate. Reciprocate. Meaning. Reciprocate is a verb that means to respond to a gesture or action by doing something similar in return. It implies an exchange or mutual action between two or more parties. Example. After Sarah gave him a thoughtful gift for his birthday, he felt compelled to reciprocate by taking her out for dinner to show his appreciation. Jeopardize. Jeopardize. Meaning. Jeopardize is a verb that means to put something or someone in danger, risk, or jeopardy. Example. Driving under the influence of alcohol can jeopardize not only your own safety but also the safety of others on the road. Antiquated. Antiquated. Meaning. Antiquated is an adjective that describes something that is old-fashioned, outdated, or no longer in current use or practice. See. Example. In today's digital age, the use of typewriters is considered antiquated. Intrinsic. Meaning. Intrinsic is an adjective that describes something that belongs to the essential nature or inherent quality of a thing, rather than being dependent on external circumstances. Example. Her love for music was intrinsic, she had been drawn to it since she was a child, finding joy and fulfillment in its melodies regardless of external factors. Investing time in expanding your vocabulary is a crucial step towards mastering English speaking. By incorporating these 50 essential words into your daily conversations, you'll notice a significant improvement in your language proficiency. Remember, practice makes perfect. Keep exploring new words, using them in context, and challenging yourself to communicate more effectively. Stay tuned for more language learning tips and resources to help you on your journey to fluency. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for future updates. Happy learning!